Hello everyone. Welcome to our exciting journey into basic geometrical ideas. Today, we're going to explore shapes, their properties, and measurements in a simple and fun way. The title of our presentation is Class 6 Basic Geometrical Ideas. Throughout this session, we'll build a solid foundation in geometry that will help you understand more complex concepts later on. So get ready to discover the fascinating world of shapes and their properties. Let's begin by exploring some of the basic building blocks of geometry: points, lines, and planes. These are the fundamental concepts that help us understand the shapes and spaces around us. A point represents a specific location in space, while a line is a collection of points extending infinitely in both directions. A plane is a flat surface that extends endlessly in all directions. Understanding these basic terms is crucial because they form the foundation for more complex geometric concepts. They also have many practical applications in fields like architecture, engineering, and computer graphics. Now, why are these concepts important in real life? Well, they help us describe and analyze the physical world. Whether designing a building, creating a map, or even developing a video game, knowing about points, lines, and planes is essential. So, as we study these shapes and their properties, we gain the tools needed to understand the space around us better. This introduction to geometry isn't just about shapes. It's about understanding how everything fits together in our environment. Let's start with line segments. A line segment has two endpoints, which means it has a definite start and end point. Think of it like a piece of string with two ends. You can measure its length, but it doesn't go on forever. Now, moving on to lines. A line extends infinitely in both directions. Imagine drawing a straight line that never stops. No matter how far you go in either direction, it continues endlessly. And then there's the concept of points. A point is the most basic building block in geometry. It has no size, no width, no height, absolutely no dimension at all. It's just a position in space. When we talk about points and lines together, we're establishing the fundamental ideas of geometry. Points mark locations, and lines connect those points or extend through them. Understanding these basics helps us build more complex shapes and figures as we progress through the presentation. Today, let's explore the different types of angles we encounter in geometry. There are three main types: acute, obtuse, and right angles. These types are all measured in degrees, which helps us understand their size and shape. An angle is formed when two rays come together at a common point, creating that space between them. Recognizing these types of angles is crucial because they appear all around us, in everything from architecture to design. By understanding what makes an angle acute, obtuse, or right, we can better interpret and analyze the shapes and structures we see every day. This foundation of understanding angles will serve as an essential building block for more complex concepts in geometry. Now, let's take a closer look at the different types of triangles. First, based on angles, we have three main types: acute, obtuse, and right triangles. An acute triangle has all angles less than 90 degrees. An obtuse triangle has one angle greater than 90 degrees, and a right triangle features exactly one 90-degree angle. Recognizing these types helps us understand the properties and behaviors of triangles in various situations. Next, considering triangles based on sides, we have equilateral, isosceles, and scalene. Equilateral triangles have all three sides equal, making all angles equal as well. Isosceles triangles have two sides equal, which means two angles are equal. Scalene triangles have no sides equal, and consequently, all angles are different. These distinctions are crucial when analyzing triangles in geometry problems. Finally, every triangle has three sides and three angles. This fundamental fact underpins all their properties and classifications. Understanding these basic features helps us see how different triangles relate to each other and how their sides and angles influence their shape and size. By grasping these classifications, we build a solid foundation for exploring more complex geometric concepts. Let's talk about how properties differ based on the types of quadrilaterals we have. When we look at shapes like squares, rectangles, parallelograms, and trapeziums, Each of these has unique properties that set them apart. For example, a square has all sides equal and all angles right angles, while a rectangle has opposite sides equal and right angles, but not necessarily all sides equal. Parallelograms have opposite sides parallel and equal, and trapeziums have only one pair of parallel sides. Now, if you notice, we've categorized these shapes mainly based on their properties and the number of types they include. For instance, there are three main types of quadrilaterals, which are four-sided polygons. These are essentially the broader categories, and within each, the properties help us understand what makes each shape unique. Remember, all these shapes are called quadrilaterals because they are four-sided polygons, and understanding their properties helps us distinguish one from another. This is a key part of understanding geometry because recognizing these properties allows us to classify and analyze different shapes more effectively. Now, let's explore some real-life applications of circles that you might encounter every day. Understanding these concepts is not just theoretical, they have practical importance. For example, when you look at a wheel or a clock face, you're seeing parts like chords, arcs, and sectors in action. These are essential components that help us understand the geometry of circles. Chords are straight lines that connect 2 points on a circle, and they're useful in many engineering and design contexts. Arcs are the curved parts of the circle, which are often seen in roads, bridges, and even in art. Sectors are portions of the circle enclosed by 2 radii and an arc. Think of a slice of a pie, which is a perfect example of a sector. The key to understanding these parts is knowing that they're all defined by the circle's radius and diameter. The radius is the distance from the center of the circle to any point on its edge, and the diameter is the longest distance across the circle, passing through the center. These measurements are fundamental because they determine the size and shape of all these parts. By grasping these concepts, chord, arc, and sector, and knowing how they relate to the circle's radius and diameter, we can better understand many practical applications, from designing mechanical parts to analyzing geographic features. This understanding connects directly to the broader theme of how geometry shapes our everyday world. Let's talk about formulas for common shapes. First, we'll focus on what we mean by area and perimeter. Area measures the space inside a shape. Think of it as the surface that the shape covers. Perimeter, on the other hand, is the total length around the boundary of the shape. Understanding these two concepts is crucial because they help us quantify and compare different shapes. Remember, perimeter tells us the boundary length, which is useful for fencing or framing, while area helps us understand how much space something occupies. These ideas are fundamental in geometry, and knowing the formulas allows us to calculate these measurements quickly and accurately. Now, let's take a closer look at cubes and cylinders, which are common shapes we encounter in everyday life. These shapes are important because they help us understand container limits and how much they can hold. When we talk about capacity, we're referring to the amount of space inside these objects. For example, the numbers 1, 2, and 3 here represent different sizes, showing how capacity can vary. Remember, these shapes measure three-dimensional space, which means we're dealing with volume. Volume is a key concept because it tells us how much space an object occupies. Understanding the difference between volume and capacity helps us make better estimates and measurements in real-world situations. In summary, cubes and cylinders are simple yet essential shapes that illustrate how we measure and understand the space inside objects, connecting directly to our broader goal of grasping volume and capacity. Let's wrap up with some final thoughts. When we look at inspiration for creativity, it becomes clear how important it is to stay curious and open-minded. This sparks new ideas and innovative approaches. Moving to wide applications, you'll see how these geometric principles are not just academic. They're everywhere, from architecture to design, and even in technology. That brings us to essential understanding, which is the foundation we need to build on confidently. And finally, our conclusion on geometry fundamentals emphasizes how mastering these basics unlocks so many possibilities. Remember, These core concepts are the key to unlocking your full creative potential across so many fields.